Hi, I'm Travis Walton, here for the showing here in the State Theater of the Travis documentary that Jennifer here produced.
And I'm Jennifer Stein. I produced the film Travis, the True Story of Travis Walton, and we're really thrilled to be screening it here in Ithaca in the latter part of May. It's one of our first premiere theater screenings, and it's going really well.
How long did this take to get together?
All total, just almost 5 years. It was a good 3 hardcore working and another 2 on either end doing, pre-planning and then post-work. So totally about 5 years.
Wow. It's a very well put together documentary, so the time is definitely worth it. You had one other movie made about you, the fictional one.
Yeah, Paramount did a dramatic presentation, and that was starred James Garner, Robert Patrick, D.B. Sweeney.
Were you happy with that one?
Well, I think it did achieve increasing people's interest to look further, to perhaps, get to the facts. Because most people realize that any kind of a theatrical movie, a dramatic presentation, it's not a documentary. So they very often follow up, they want the book too.
This kind of it doesn't cover the actual event that everyone pretty much knows about. This is kind of the other stuff that was going on at the time.
Well, it does go into it.
Yes, it does.
It doesn't just. It's not just about that.
It's not just
Correct.
that, but it does include a very nice reenactment with some good graphic art representations.
Because I feel like it's not just for someone who doesn't know about it. It's for people who already know about it but want more details.
Yes, there's a lot of background, been a lot of subsequent research that helped to confirm or rebut certain theories that were offered to try to explain it.
I was pretty amazed that one of your friends that they tried to buy him off.
Yes, that was definitely a bribe, and there's absolutely no doubt that this actually occurred. The message was delivered by one of the local sheriff's deputies.
That's one of the main things that I feel proud of, that the film really attempted to tackle as a documentary, because a lot of UFO films don't really deal with the debunking issue, and this film really tries to unpack that a little bit. And it talks about the terrible effect that can have on people's lives, and really how the whole debunking effort, which was massive on their case, because there was so much reliable evidence that really wanted to be squelched by people who didn't want this story out.
I've always even taken exception to the term debunking, because they're not removing bunk so much as creating bunk.
True.
It's really just a smear campaign, a targeted media campaign to try to refute something that in many cases may or may not be deserving of such treatment.
Yeah.
And in many cases, all they really need to do is create doubt in people's minds. And they can do that by creating doubt around the facts or creating doubt around the character of the people.
If you're already eager to find a reason to disbelieve it, some of the thinnest things that were used to explain away are really kind of silly when they're given a little further examination. Things about drug hallucinations or mass hysteria or the psychological things that would not affect an entire group of people. No, people don't experience identical hallucinations.
Right. And I always find it interesting that some of the explanations are far more out there than the initial claims themselves.
Yeah,
you're like,
that's the truth.
wait a minute. And they don't feel like they have to back those up.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we explained it, there we go. It's like, but no, you didn't.
It's a favorite tactic of skeptics to act as if the unproven is the absolute equivalent of disproven.
Yes.
And that's not the case at all.
If you had the ability to go back and erase this event from your life, would you?
I think I would. Yeah, I'd rather it never happened. But you're stuck with it. You have to go forward. What happened, and just.
It would make your life a very different life today.
Sure it had.
That's one of the main things we really attempted to capture in the film, is the effect that it had on all of these men, especially Travis, but the other members of the crew as well. It hasn't been easy for them. And they were very willing to be honest about that. And I was very grateful as a filmmaker to be able to capture that. And it's not just the film or the crew that we interviewed. We went and interviewed police and people who worked in the community at the time, the person who was involved in the lie detection at the time, Cy Gilson. So we really got their feedback and experience as well with a 40-year perspective.
And it seems like this was a good point to do it at, because a lot of these people probably aren't going to be alive much longer. I mean, some of them were older when this happened to you. You were 23?
I was 22 at the time,
22, yeah. And so some of them were probably, what, in their 30s and 40s, like the police officer and...
Yeah.
Yes, we've already lost Marlon Gillespie.
Yeah, the sheriff and one of his deputies has since passed away. I think maybe 2 of his deputies. Yeah.
So it's really valuable that you got as many people as you did on film talking about this stuff.
And we also put in some archive footage as well. And there's a lot of UFO experts in the film talking about their research of the case at the time, their research on it following up over the years, and how they feel about it now. So we've really tried to create a, like a distance perspective on this issue, to say that it was important then, it's still important now, and it's probably still going to be important in the future.
Well, I feel like it's one of those cases that's undeniable. You know, you had something extraordinary happen to you. There's no way to argue it. There's no good evidence that didn't happen. Some of the UFO cases, there's that sketchiness sometimes around the corners where you can say, well...
Especially when they employ the propaganda techniques, it's anything that you can create doubt with. They haven't disproven anything, they've just, created doubt, and that's enough for some people.
And I think even some of them were hardened skeptics, well, at least something happened to you. You've always come across as being very genuine about the experience.
They just believe this happened, but what actually happened...
Right.
They, like you say, some of the attempts to explain it away are even more far out than extraterrestrials. Like some sort of seismic shift in the ground could create massive voltages that would alter people's perceptions. And 7 people identically again.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. People don't, as you say, people don't generally hallucinate the same thing. And when they do, it might not be a hallucination. It might be an altered state, but obviously they're interacting with something that's directing that altered state, if that's the case. Did you have any other experiences in your life?
I did experience one a few years back with a large group of other observers. It was one of those giant black triangles, but I kind of lean in favoring that is some sort of covert military development. But it was definitely nothing conventional.
Have you had any other non-UFO weird experiences? Anything paranormal?
Yeah, there's a lot of some strange things that happen in connection with something like this, but I've always tried to stick strictly to the things that I can document, because the whole reason to get out here with a case this strong is to point to the evidence. And if you have something that sounds rather fantastic and you have nothing more than I say it happened, that weighs in the other direction, and it's counterproductive.
It gives the skeptics some ammunition there.
Yeah.
Do you affect electronics?
Pardon?
Do you affect like wristwatches or anything like that?
Yeah, I've had that kind of thing in my life. Yeah.
Always, or only after weeks?
Probably all my life, static electricity type stuff,
Yeah. Because some people, a lot of people who have UFO experiences find themselves unable to wear wristwatches, they affect computers, and so on and so forth. It's also a common after effect of near-death experiences, interestingly enough.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Kenneth Ring did a whole study on UFO experiencers and near-death experiencers and found a lot of commonalities, and one of them was the electrosensitivity, that they both affect electronics more often than not.
Wow, that's really interesting.
So where is the documentary going to be available?
Well, it's available at the main website, TravisWaltonTheMovie.com. It's also available on Travis's website,
which is TravisWalton.com.
Which is TravisWalton.com. So those 2 places are really the only place people can buy the film, unless it's available for sale at a conference. Or
wherever her or I might be speaking personally.
And sometimes where we are doing screenings, we usually bring some copies of the film.
Which they can get autographed.
Yes, there's actually a couple versions of the film. When we started the film, we realized within the first year and a half that we were going to have to reshoot some of the film because I licensed some archive footage. And as you can understand, sometimes licensing deals don't always materialize the way you anticipate. And my licensing deal fell through after I paid for it. So I needed to either sue or go back and renegotiate or buy new licensing from someone else. And I took the third option because it was the simplest to do because I had a film to make. And so there's a couple versions. The newer version we're attempting to sell to a network. It's about 20 to 30% new material in it. We also did some more in-depth tree investigation research in the process, and did some new updated interviews. Took out one of the American Polygraph people from the 1970s and put in someone who gave a American Polygraph perspective for 40 years. So we changed out a few things, added in a few other experts. So that version we're hoping that a distributor will pick up, and hopefully we can get it out to some art house theaters or bundle it with some other interesting UFO documentaries. Maybe it'll go to Netflix, History Channel, Sci-Fi, History 2, Destination America. There's a lot of places where it would really fit, and we're hoping to get their attention and get a distributor interested.
Are you thoroughly sick of talking about this event yet?
Well, some questions get a little tedious occasionally. You know, some questions you're like, why would anybody ask that? You know, like, let's see, what would one? What was that like? I mean, how do you answer a question like that? Come on, let's get a little more specific there.
And he gets asked similar questions again and again and again and again. You know, did the ETs, talk to you in your mind? Do you have nightmares about them? Do you have any special powers because of that?
Are you Superman? When that happened to you, like before you went through the hypnosis and stuff, what is like the last thing you remember and the first thing you remember?
Well, the idea with regression, the technique at the time was to begin in a particular point in time and then regress backward in time.
But like when it happened, what did you remember initially?
Actually, the regressive hypnosis was not successful at recovering much in the way of blocked memories. It established that there was a difficulty accessing certain things, but the main thing that was achieved there was to separate this overpowering fear from the ability to just describe what happened.
Oh, okay. So it helped you deal with the fear, basically.
Yeah, and it actually had a sort of a lasting effect. An ongoing reduction in the amount of emotion that accompanied talking about it. Because up to that point, I had only tried to talk about it to my brother and the sheriff, and I could hardly finish a sentence. It was.
Do you remember running up to it though? Like
yeah, I did.
So you remember up to the point that you got shocked, basically.
Yeah, and I remembered the things on board too, but it was just something I couldn't verbalize. It was
sure. It doesn't seem like it was a fun experience in any way, shape, or form.
No.
What I like to point out to people is that Travis had memory at the moment that he woke up on the side of the street.
Yeah.
As soon as he came to, he recognized, and he looked up and he saw this light above him, and then the light disappears. He knew what that light was. He wasn't confused. He immediately had this fear rushing back. He remembered running up to the craft in the forest. He knew it had been the end of a workday. So there wasn't a lapse in memory. So when he went to do a regression, the purpose of that regression was to see if there was anything that could be recovered, but also to really bring down this post-traumatic stress experience that he was having.
And it was enormous. I mean, that was one of the main points that the various reporters described at that time.
Yeah, I'm sure it gave you some nightmares and such as well.
Yeah, it was
Does
definitely.
it still?
No, that went away gradually, you know. There's occasionally where, you know, I'm making the sounds of fighting in my sleep, but when I wake up, I don't remember in particular those kind of scenes anymore.
All right. Well, I think both of you should spend some time talking to me about this. The documentary is excellent.
Well, thank you very much. That's
I
a
saw
lovely
one of the
compliment.
early ones because Peter had given me a copy, and I was very, very impressed. And I'm glad you did this. And I'm glad you're willing to talk about it, because I think that's, you know, it's such an important thing to get out there.
There are times I get tempted to say, oh, walking away from this, I'm never going to talk about
I'm
this again.
sure. But the fact that you are such a, you're someone who resonates sort of with believability. You're not making any outrageous claims. You're not, you know, you have the evidence to back it up. Like I said, it's one of those cases where it's hard to deny that something happened to you.
Yeah, well, there it is. There's the evidence. Take it or leave it.
I'll tell you one of the things that really impressed me about Travis. I mean, I bought his book and read it, and I think one of the motivating factors for me to want to get to know Travis better is he never decided to come forward. Many people have an opportunity or a chance to make that decision. They'll have an experience, they'll be with a couple of people maybe even, but by the time Travis was returned, he had been missing. And because he was missing, this story became a homicide story, a missing person story, a potential, you know, hoax, you know, a UFO story.
But world news.
And world news.
Yeah.
So
before I talk to anybody.
when he came back, he had the police and the press literally hounding at his door. I mean, they were hounding his family prior to his being returned. So that made it
And
very...
here I was avoiding interviews, and they were saying, aha, that's suspicious, he's avoiding interviews. As soon as I started doing interviews, and also, oh, he's a publicity seeker, huh?
Of course.
So damned if you do and damned if you don't.
There's
you know?
no winning to those people at all.
Yeah. And I think that's why you really need a documentary to kind of really unpack the pieces of this and let people understand that this is not a simple story. This is not something you want to have happen to you. No. But when it does, we really need to be, you know, as a progressive society, there should be support for people who have experienced something like this, and there's not. So their lives get ripped apart, their loved ones, you know, abandon them. The time in their life when they really need the most support, it's very hard to find. And I think the more we begin to accept this and understand this, possibly through getting to know Travis, reading his book, seeing his documentary, if that can help a few other people, then he's done his job and I've done mine.